driveway around
Yes,
Carlton right there.
they called and we called the water company and sent the water company out. And the quick version on that is she had called in and told me that it had been like that for like a year and she didn't think to call, and she called. And so we sent the water company over there, and what's going on, I've not seen. I believe that I'm positive that's what that is.
A whole bunch is going on. They got 4 or 5 giant trucks. They're digging up somebody's front yard. They're excavating, and
Right.
you know, I talked to the foreman.
I mean, the water main goes along the street, right?
Yeah.
So maybe just in front of their house, in the
Well,
right
they
of
were
way.
digging in the front yard
Well, then that,
with a backhoe, going pretty deep. So I know they know what they're doing.
must,
So
yeah, that must not be the water company then. I mean, maybe they're helping with it. I don't know.
well, they said it was water, drinking water, tap water.
Yeah. I just know from when they dug up Minerva Lake Road, when they replaced all the water mains 20 years ago, mains run along the streets, in the right of way. They don't run in people's yards.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what this is, but we did call to verify exactly, to get the water company out there. So once they dug, maybe they figured out something that we haven't been notified that that they need us for anything.
They were working on it. They were excavating, but not in the street. I can only tell you what I saw there and what the foreman told me. He said it was, a water main, and they were fixing it.
Yeah, that's who we called. So that's as much as I know on that. Okay. So
they had like seven vehicles there, including a tractor trailer truck. I think that had tobacco on it.
Okay, this is Joe's Streets meeting. It is April something.
April 15
at 7. Okay.
Is it Lakewood where there's work going on? I'm trying.
I have no work going on anywhere. That's my answer to that question.
Okay.
If there's work going on, it is not related to anything. I know that I've seen the gas company in here and doing a couple of things, but again, I have no idea what they're doing. I've seen them on Jordan Road. I've seen them around, but those projects are not related to Village at this time or anything that I'm aware of. So to start with a couple things, I think this meeting was requested for the 2 street or the storm, the sanitary, and the road conditions, all that are getting ready to come up to 3rd readings for you guys to decide if you guys want to move forward on these projects or not. You guys already have I think I forwarded you guys all of the prices because I was obviously wrong. The street assessment, that was correct on the legislation. I have not updated the legislation as of yet. I'm getting ready to do that for the 3rd reading for the storm and the sanitary sewer CCTV. So those are both roughly around $30,000 for each of those. I spoke to Kim today, and there is money in the street fund to do the street analysis. There is not enough money. It was actually scheduled to be done in 2022. It is budgeted for 2022. And if we want to move it back to 2021 and have it done this year, she does not have a problem with that because, again, the money was already budgeted for next year. If we decide we want to wait on that project until 2022, that is up to you guys. I am not here to fight for any of these projects. I am just here to give you guys the information and you guys decide what you want to move forward on. The storm sewer project and the sanitary sewer project, there is money budgeted, not enough money budgeted for both of these projects. There is enough money in the storm funds and in the sanitary sewer funds, just not appropriated for this project. So do we have to go into general fund for any 3 of these projects? The answer is no. I specifically asked that to Kim to make sure that you guys could make this decision based on what we have in the actual funds. But every single one of these projects would require some sort of an appropriation from in those funds. So you would see a line item on the appropriation that we're gonna pass Monday, on whichever one of these projects that you guys choose to do. So I wanted to make that a point because even I was concerned about getting money from the general fund to support any one of these types of things right now. Just because there's so much stuff that we are trying to do. If we push it off a year, which I know we do not want to do, but if we were forced to, is that something we wanted to do? So I'm not going to keep rambling on. Nothing comes from the general fund at this point. Everything is, we do not have enough appropriated for any one of these three projects, but we have enough money in the streets fund. We have enough money in the sanitary sewer fund, and we have enough money in the storm sewer fund to move forward on these projects. And that's the answer that I told you guys I would bring to you for tonight.
You just seem to contradict yourself. Are you saying that the combined money that's in the streets, sewer, sanitary, combined it's enough, but it would have to be
No,
reallocated?
let me re-explain it. We have street funds.
Right?
There has not been enough appropriated for this particular thing, but there is money in the streets fund. It's not been appropriated to do this. So we would need to do an appropriation.
Okay, so.
You mean for the analysis?
I'm sorry. I know Kim isn't here tonight, so, but it was my understanding that this scheduling, the CCTV, the scheduling was supposed to be budgeted because we agreed for.
It is, it's not enough. We weren't expecting it to be 30,000 plus Mike's 12,800. So we had budgeted 30,000. We didn't budget enough for both of those projects. So it was already budgeted, but it wasn't budgeted enough.
And Mike's not here tonight, is he?
No.
Okay, I have a number of questions, which are, posed for everybody, not anyone in particular. But what I know about the streets, especially, over on Wildwood and Jordan and, just a number of the streets where there's curb issues and those sort of things that we had discussed about a year ago. Does this study just simply go through and tell us where our problems are?
Just for the streets, not curbs and gutters.
Right. But
we've already done the assessment.
Why would a street not include the gutter?
I'm gonna assume it does, because we can, most of our, maybe I should say it this way, and maybe I shouldn't say something I don't know the correct answer to, but other than Jordan Road and the new section, I'm not aware of any curb and gutter. Number one, a majority doesn't have any curb or gutter just to start with.
Well, we've got curbs, back.
Okay, Berry Lane Court, yeah.
The court area, Kerwood.
A couple of them.
Yeah.
All have got curbs.
Well,
Alder
if you go
Vista,
back to Briar Road, if you go
Alder
back to
Vista,
Briar
Lakewood.
Roads,
Yeah, but those are
There's
all
curb.
deteriorated.
but there's curbs there, okay?
There
are
Yeah.
curbs underneath they've been covered with blacktop. I mean,
Right.
Some people have fixed their
That's the issue, Tony, that I was bringing up, and I'm not sure exactly what an analysis is going to do for us. I'm not saying I'm against it or anything necessarily, but I'm
well,
curious what we get for
that's a good question,
$40,000.
I'm not. I would like to think that it does include the curbs, but I
it
don't know
may,
that.
but it's just gonna tell you they need done,
Yeah,
Well, right.
that's my point.
right?
We could get a very sophisticated analysis. If money was no object, that's a great
Mm-hmm.
idea. But most of us are familiar with these issues from before. Are there any real pressing emergency type street issues going on?
No, I don't.
I
just
haven't
like to
driven
think-
all the streets and marked the maps yet.
Well, and I've been through most of the streets, and I don't think any of them, except for the area that we're already talking about at Maplewood, Briar Rose, coming in off of Cleveland Avenue, that's already being looked at for repairs. And at this point, I don't think we need to. I think we can put off a road analysis for at least another year.
And that's when it was budgeted
Because
for.
right now, I think we need to concentrate on is crack filling.
I'm prone
I
to
don't
think that
need
way
an
also.
engineer to do that.
I'm prone to
What's that,
agree
Joe?
with that. I said, I'm prone to agree with that suggestion you're making, although I'd like to know a little more about it.
I mean, there's one area that I think that I'm concerned about right now, and like I just said, it's already being addressed. I think we've already, hasn't Mike put together, he's put together at least an initial plan for the Maplewood area, hasn't he?
Yeah, but it was
Well,
like
we've already,
I want to say that's been at least 2 years pushed off. So my
Right.
guess is it all has to be redone. And then if you guys remember, right, we had discussed adding in more curbs and gutters because they're pretty much non-existent. And then we had talked about going all the way to Briar Rose. And I'm just going to tell you, when I got a brief overview, it was like $500,000. That was like a quick estimate. We don't even have it. So
well, the point I'm
We're
trying
back
to
to
make
the
is
all or
that
nothing.
we already know that it needs repair. We don't need someone to go out and tell us that this area needs repair. That's why I think we don't need to worry about this right now, because the one area that does need repair, we've already had we don't need to be told that it needs to be repaired. And the
Right.
rest of the roads, I mean, this was a year where I don't remember there being very many potholes, that we had to deal with, except for on the service road was probably the worst area. And that's
Okay.
why I think we don't need to have an analysis yet, because nothing's really falling apart.
okay, if we actually
I want to temper what I said with the following, and that is when the time comes to do major construction on a street, curbs or anything like that, then that's when we would really need to look at engineering in terms of having the design of the roadway properly done. But
so
until
Right.
time as they're building it,
just so you
things
guys
they
are
could do the study and things could change.
okay, just so you guys are aware, curb and gutter is in fact looked at and rated in the system with that proposal.
Okay.
Well, just
So
to throw out a
I
crazy,
think I'm into, and in terms of postponing it and discussing it again next year, just postpone it till next year, postpone the discussion till next year. And okay, we all agree. It sounds like we all agree. So let's move on. Check.
Works for me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sanitary and storm.
now, Wildwood, everybody complains on Wildwood at the end, not the Cleveland end, but the other end, that all the water flows down Wildwood and accumulates and floods down there like it does on Park Lane. I've had so many people tell me that. I assume that's true, but I haven't had time to go over and take pictures or look at it or anything.
So
Yeah, no, that's not true.
So one of the issues that you have on Wildwood is this is not an engineered by any stretch of any imagination, but each year that they've continued to pave the roads, it's gone higher and higher. Some of those sewer grates, water can't even get to them.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys have paid attention to that over there. So, the water's flowing just past the sewer grates and continually
Right.
goes. So they're not
Until
doing
it gets to the end and then it floods.
No. So I think
No, it doesn't. It's up to West Bridge Street, from Cleveland Avenue to West Bridge Street. It also flows down towards Minerva Lake Road. So some of it is going downhill towards Minerva Lake Road. Some of it, of course, is moving on, but that's a flood point right there, where water will come downhill towards Minerva Lake Road from West Bridge Street and Wildwood and the streets there.
But that stormwater, do we have an accumulation problem in a heavy rain there? I keep hearing that we do.
Well, what's funny is people have talked about the streets being too high to reach the sewer grates, and I just remember at the great, things. I know we've done some clean outs, so that should make a difference. But I know during the great flood that we had, Wildwood in those areas, the water was just sitting on top of the sewers and it wasn't going down. So it wasn't just one thing. Obviously, it just wasn't one thing. And they didn't have a clear path to come down that pipe to the creek from Wildwood, et cetera, to Minerva Lake Road.
Well, the
It was
storm
just sitting. So it
sewer,
wasn't that it wasn't reaching the sewers, it was just sitting on top of the sewers, the water.
but the grates and the storm sewers, when they were working correctly, let's just say it that way. Let's say that the water does flow down Wildwood to the end, and some of it gets diverted over there. But that area is close. Doesn't the water end up in the ravine going into North Lake?
It ends up from Wildwood, it ends up going to Red Bank Road. If you know where Red Bank Road, there's a ravine back there.
Yeah.
That's where Wildwood ends up going to. And
Well, that's not very far distance.
no, and there's no.
So, but my point is that repair on that, you know, whether we have the money or not, or whether we're doing it or not, repair on that should not be anything like what we're talking about on these other storm sewers, would it?
Well, aren't we waiting for Mike to get back to us? They've done the CCTV and I thought Mike was getting back to us on that assessment. And they just got it
did.
recently in the storm sewer?
Yeah, and he just decided that it does need, the pipe needs to be increased.
Well, in that other area, right, but what about Wildwood?
Yeah. That's not,
Wildwood,
well,
they
that,
did-
I don't think that area's been televised yet.
Yes,
That-
it has
that
been
far back,
televised
yeah.
and we only did the failing parts to that. We haven't done anything major like the storm. I think maybe you're right. We did only do the West Bridge, Elmhurst
And it-
area and Jordan Road. I think
bottom
you're right.
part, it didn't. And that's why I think we're segueing into what we really need to concentrate on here between sanitary and storm, you know, is the real conversation that we need to have right now. And that is the storm sewers, you know, were you able to find out when we had them last? Because
I
the
can't.
the sanitary stuff, we had agreed to a 7-year schedule. And I
Checking
don't think
right
we're
now.
to 7 years yet. So that's why I'd like to hold off on sanitary sewer inspections because they have all been inspected, unlike our storm sewers, which haven't all been inspected. So I'd like to hold off on sanitary inspections and wait till it has been 7 years before we start, you know, doing the televising of sanitary and move forward with doing.
Storm. So
Well,
I
I
thought
want to
they-
hold off on sanitary. I want to hold off on the sanitary
Sanitary,
because they've
right.
all been inspected.
Now,
Right,
is,
Right, and I want
focus
to
on the storm,
continue with the
right.
storm.
is
Right.
Jacobs the
Yeah.
design firm for the sanitary?
design
Jacobs
firm?
is they're our engineer.
Yeah, Mike
isn't it?
Fletcher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are they the
Jacobs is
design
what it
firm
used
for-
to be called, or what it's called now, or whatever.
Thank
Whichever
you.
way it goes.
Who's
They
done the
were-
design on the rehab on the sanitary sewers?
I don't know that there's much design more than they decide what the
Fix it.
scope of work is.
Yeah,
They don't really, you know, they just say that this is getting lined, these lines are being lined, and then there's point repairs.
Well,
You know, they just,
are there
they just decide
linings
what
that
to
are
do.
leaking that are producing complaints of sewage by residents
Well, that
still?
goes back to we've had the EPA tell us that we need to work on, you know, the contamination of our sewers, sanitary sewers into the stormwater. So that's why, you know, we started relining the worst of the lines. But I don't, you know, we're not going to move forward with lining the sanitary lines until they're at that point where they need it. And right, you know, as of the last inspections, we have lined everything that needs to be lined.
Okay,
in
that,
our-
well, that
in our
was
sanitary.
really my question, Tony. That there are no longer complaints of people getting sewage seeping into their basements and so on.
Well, we don't have
you
anybody.
don't have total control over that. You know, there's the sewage line goes to the street and it could be seeping because they've got a blockage between their house and the street. So
Right.
that could always be an
Our-
issue with sewer
Right,
house.
we just have to make sure our sanitary lines aren't leaking into the
Right.
groundwater.
Well, let me say it another way. Then we have done the camera work on the sanitaries, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay,
but
okay.
that's- yeah. And they've all been
2016.
televised.
That,
What was that?
September of 2016 is when Jordan Road was done-ish. That's when the legislation was passed.
So we're right at 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
That's why I say we wait every bit of the 7, you know, in my opinion, because like I said, they've all been done. And you know, the ones that weren't lined, they weren't in that bad a shape. That's why we didn't line them. You know, so it's not like I wouldn't say that, you know, it's not unknown as to what you know, the quality of our lines that we have. And we know that they're old and need to be kept an eye on, but there's not any imminent danger of anything collapsing, I don't think. And
I
again,
think
we just need to go through, save what money we can, in my opinion, for our storm sewer work, because that to me is, once we figure out what the heck's going on down the back of, you know, Jordan Road with this pipe that leads to nowhere, and Columbus not knowing exactly what's going on with their portion of the pipes back there, I think we've got a lot of work in our future on the storm sewers.
Yeah, it's gonna be a complete cluster confusion, if you ask me.
Well, what,
No.
yeah, and what, I thought we were done with both. I thought I heard you say to Tiffany a couple times that we were done with the CCVT of both the sanitary and the,
Not
Wow.
CCTV. We were done with both projects. We had two projects going on at the exact same time. One was repairing sanitary, one was repairing storm sewers, the actual sewers. We have only completed, I'm gonna go with, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, 25 to 35% of the storm. We've only done Jordan Road, Yasmin Market
I would
area.
say at the
Yeah,
most.
we're just starting those. So yeah, the next section I believe is gonna be a much larger section. We aren't trying to do that in 3 years. We are trying to separate that one a little bit further. The reason that we did the sanitary is because, you know, we were having a lot of people saying that they were getting back up
right,
into their
no,
house.
I get the sanitary, we're close. So where we are is, we do need to do the next storm sewer
I
section.
absolutely think we do.
Okay, I'm
Last year we did
100%
great.
behind that. I
Are
mean,
we going down line on that? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
oh,
Diane.
that's right, that's right.
Are we going down line, for example, you know, the direction of the water flow? Because is Huntington Bank contributing some water to this storm sewer or not? I keep hearing it does and it doesn't.
They shouldn't be. And that's where Columbus comes into play here, is because it's up at by the Yasmin Market and Cleveland Avenue there, where they do have lines, you know, where ours are at too, or real
Well,
close.
I know.
On the bank behind the houses on Jordan Road, but it isn't supposed to come over. The stuff at Huntington Bank is not supposed to be coming over to ours.
Well, I know Gene had said before he left and went to Mifflin or went to Obet's or wherever it was, that they were doing something legally in terms of working with Columbus to see about all these apparently, you know, impromptu taps that were put into the sewer behind the mall up there, behind your house, Tiffany, and along there.
Well, it's really in front. There's a part of the storm sewers in Cleveland Avenue that I think at one time connected us to Columbus, but it's been blocked off. And this is the kind of stuff that we did find out when we televised the storm sewers. And, you know, that's where we started at, was in this area. And that's why I think we need to, like you were talking about, Joe, is continue on down the line, which would be further down Wildwood, like we were talking about at the bottom of Wildwood. That would be the first spot that I would, you know, want to televise. And I really think that's like the only part left that hasn't been televised. How would I describe it?
It's Woodley, isn't Woodley, Wildwood, Carl, and those two little.
Up around Westbridge and Elmhurst,
Yeah.
you know, that's all been televised, the storm sewer part, and that goes over, like, leads over to your house.
Yeah.
You know, but it's the part that would be east of that on Wildwood that goes down to the North Lake.
Okay.
And that's where I think we need to do that for sure. And then, I don't know, it's like I guess maybe into the south part of the
So here's the
village.
current CCTV schedule for the storm. It appears that we did finish Wildwood. Do not completely quote me on that, and I will verify, because here's what I have for the scope of work. And this, I believe you guys have all been sent this, because I sent out the storm and sanitary sewer. The next scope of work for cleaning of the storm sewers should be East Shore Drive, Kerwood, Minerva Lake Road, Ponderosa. That is the next section.
Well, does that, so we've done I'm sorry, so we've done Wildwood, but then underneath that is what we've done Woodley then too?
That's what I'm verifying.
Well, we're talking about the camera work, not repair, right?
Camera, well, both. Camera,
Now,
repair as you go, camera plus repair as you go, I guess.
the whole storm sewer line that goes behind Jordan Road there, behind your property, and
We've
all the way
already done
down.
that though. We've done
Yeah,
that.
we've already done all that.
Well, they've done the camera work, but it was my understanding, my question is that some parts of it, they couldn't televise just yet, that there were parts of it that were owned by a private resident that was being litigated. Then there was several things Gene had mentioned, the last I recall. That's been a while, but I didn't know if those had been resolved.
That's the stuff that Columbus is getting into, is because the line behind the mayor's house is ours, and then it goes into Columbus lines, and that's where they're working on. Columbus is working on that.
Are they,
Okay.
Now, I don't
are
know.
they doing repair or just studying?
They're trying to figure out why there's water sitting on Cleveland Avenue all the time. Is what Columbus is trying to figure out.
I ran into this when these guys were dumping up at the Hampton, and they were pumping out this. Actually, it was a white fluid. I don't know what it was, but they were pumping this over a fence. But it was coming out all the storm sewers and into North Lake. And
Right.
so,
You're talking about that retirement home?
that's that line somewhere. That was, they were pouring it into that back area behind the mall, and it was finding its way into the storm sewer.
Right.
Well, our sewer, that's what's weird, is that there's a section around Jordan Road, the back of Jordan Road, in between the service road, that is ours. Then there's Columbus, and then it comes back to ours, and then it goes into that line. It goes into East Shore Court, back behind your house. It's a hot mess. It was
Okay.
one time that part of.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just trying to answer some questions. So here's what I can tell you. I was able to find the 171-page storm sewer CCTV analysis. And I will tell you, according to the analysis, without going crazy, without researching every single thing, it does appear that there were addresses from Woodley, Wildwood, Jordan Road. There's even a North Bay on here, which went around the corner. So they must have even done that in this storm sewer CCTV. So I would hate to answer your question firmly 100% Woodley and all of that is done. However, according to this, I do have pipes that are on all of those streets that were analyzed, and I have the report.
Okay.
So that's why we're doing the next section is not.
Were there calls for immediate repairs on any of those?
So that was part of the 2021 storm sewer project that we just completed, was relining a lot of those pipes. We just completed the I do believe I should be calling it 2020 projects, because when we did the grant, they went to the next. So we did complete quite a bit of repairs, storm and sanitary, and it was the same company that had the low bid. But we've done quite a few of those projects.
Well, yeah, because you've done right next to our house, the pipe that goes to the creek, that's been lined. The storm sewer has been lined. I can confirm that you can clearly see it.
Right. So without going and actually, without going and actually printing everything, because as I know your guys' head spins when we start talking about storm sewers and sanitary sewers and which ones we've done. I mean, I love being able to say we've done so much, but trying to keep them all straight. And I'm saying this on an actual meeting. It's difficult to keep every single line straight as to which ones we've done. Here's what I know. We haven't done all of the storm sewers. What roads we still have left to do, I'm not sure. But I do know that our engineer does know, and I do know we can go through all of the analysis. We do have all of the records that you'd asked for, Diane. So the next section, like I said, is the section that our engineer believes that we should be doing next. The estimate is there, and then what we would just need to do is appropriate the rest of the money that we're short on. And I believe it's mostly just the engineering that we're short on. I believe most of the money is there for the project, that it had been engineered. We didn't appropriate enough for the engineering and the project. Because honestly, I thought it was going to be lower, but maybe we're just doing more because it's right around 30,000. And I was thinking that it was like 15 or 20. So again,
Well, are we still leaving the legal out? Because I know Gene was working on it, and I presume his replacement, Jesse,
well,
is.
they only work on issues. No, they're at this point in time, they're, our attorneys only deal with when we have problems. So we have problems with certain areas, meaning, whose pipe is whose. Cleaning the storm and sanitary sewers, we don't really have a legal issue with doing those. So, if a legal issue arises from this, then yes, we would have to budget more money and, move forward on that. But at this point in time, this would really just be cleaning our own, and we would not need to appropriate more money for our attorney to do any of this stuff.
But if a legal work was needed, that would be appropriated through a street fund as opposed to some other legal.
Where that money comes from, I have no idea. I would assume it still comes from the same fund. That would be my assumption.
So legal work on streets comes out of streets. Got it.
Okay, so are we ready to say we're going forward with the next section of storm?
I think so. That's
Yes.
what I recommend.
I vote
I
yes.
would think so. I trust the engineer's recommendation also.
Okay, all right, great, next.
And then the question is I just want to be clear on this, and we are not going to move forward on the sanitary on Jordan Road section until next year.
Right.
At least.
At least.
Next year or 7, we can revisit it next year, but yeah, as Tony says. But then, if we leave ourselves no wiggle room, we really have to do or die do it if we're going to go 7 years, because otherwise,
Right.
Yeah, so that would be the longest we should go, I think, is 7 years.
Oh, I completely agree. I think you shouldn't push it to the end, because it's just like we did last year. I mean, and I'm just, again, going to say it. We got so busy doing the actual projects itself that we didn't do any CCTV at all last year. And not because, I'm just going to say it, because of COVID, nobody was thinking anything. And we already had so many projects going on at the same time. I know everybody loves to say we can walk and chew gum at the same time, but there's times in which my head's spinning between which sewer project. I guess when you try to get everything done in 3 to 5 years and it hasn't been done in 25 years, I think that we should all be thankful, and we should all be, we should all be, huh?
I agree that we need to continue televising, but right now,
we're on a good pace.
Now, the main storm sewer problem, we're not aware of any sanitary problems,
Right.
Except for one individual homeowner's got a problem. And, but our storm sewers, we know we've got problems, and it's just in one certain area. I don't think there are any, if we're getting ready to start doing north, my neighborhood where the courts and East Shore, Ponderosa, we don't have any storm sewer issues back here other than the storm water's coming, from other neighborhoods that shouldn't be coming down here. And, that's why, if the engineer wants to move to that section next, honestly, I think we ought to do the south side of the village because it's just older. I think my neighborhood here is from the late 60s, and, the south side's from the 40s. You
I
know,
think he wants to do Minerva Lake Road, and I think it's the way that this whole section to get, so I think it's kind of, and I
well,
just
that's
remember
where,
that
yeah, I think
there
the
was something
Minerva
why
Lake
they
Road
did
is,
it. Yeah, there was something why they did it that way when they did even the sanitary. So it may have to do with the flowing or something. I'm not an engineer. I already said that once. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get I'm going to have Kim and them work on the appropriations for Monday night for just the storm sewer CCTV and, the engineering for the CCTV for just the storm. And then, postpone those until 2022 and just see where we are at 2022 and then determine which ones we want to do next year. Same thing.
Wait, saying postpone storm sewers?
No,
Or
sanitary.
sanitary, right, okay.
Sanitary.
Right.
And I probably said the wrong thing. So the other part to that is, I'm going to ask you guys at the end of this for my last question, because I do have 3 of you on here. So, but so I asked, let's continue on storms and streets and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to get off topic.
Right.
I asked him today if he could give me a timeline for the East Shore Court documents, and his answer to me, let me just read it so I don't misspeak, because I know when, but I want to say what they're actually doing. My goal is to have the project ready for bidding by the end of May. We are already working on the drawings, so the next step for me is to schedule our structural engineer for the new head wall. Before finalizing the documents, he would like to have another conversation with me about the trees. Without really going in big detail on that, I have my personal opinions, but I also realize it's not my backyard. So my question, just for your guys' purposes, I don't know if you guys know exactly what I mean by that. There was a large portion of the design plan was to try to help preserve some of the trees that were back there. There was no guarantee that they were going to live or die. There was no, Diane, do you remember what I'm talking about when it comes to that?
Absolutely. Because
I do.
I weighed in, and we're spending, the thing is we've committed to spend so much money on this that I love trees and big old trees, and they just don't, but I'm sorry. If we're spending this kind of money, we need to take the trees out. They're in the way, and we need to not, at this point, worry about preservation. Sorry.
Well, the neighbor to my direct north, I look at the trees all the time. They're
love
huge.
trees. I got
They're,
trees.
yeah, I love them too. They're huge, but they are nearing the end of their lifespan. And I have looked at the drawings, and there were significant changes in the design in order to try and save the trees without a guarantee you'd save them. And
Right.
because they're at the end of their life, I would think the risk of them dying anyway would be more significant.
Right.
So
really, I'm just kind of looking to you guys, for, are you guys going to be okay with that? Because clearly this is a project that's eventually going to have to get to you guys. And I just don't want that to be a roadblock. I'm going to assume it's going to be a little bit of a roadblock. I will tell you, I've already had that question from some of the residents back there that are, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I got the feeling they may not be happy about losing some trees. And again, I don't know who you're talking about. I don't want to imply it's one versus another. But I definitely got the impression that there was going to be some people not happy about that. And I think, and Diane, you said it, so I'm going to say it just so you're not the Lone Ranger. You know how I feel about those things. I think that there's a time and a place for it. I think that this is an unfortunate situation that needs fixed. And I think if there's a tree standing in the way of $10,000 to $20,000, the tree's got to go. I can't justify spending an additional $10,000 to $20,000 of resident money to save a tree when we could go plant a larger tree or 5. It doesn't save the same thing.
It also changed the design. They were routing for East Shore, the pipe that goes from the failed basin down to where the head wall is going to be. there was a lot of changing of how they were going to install that pipe because of the trees.
I think if someone were gonna, I've got some beautiful, big, especially oak trees in the back, and I would be devastated.
Right.
But, and I get that totally, and you can't put it's hard, trees like that, trees that are that large are, especially ones that are long-lived trees, that's priceless. You cannot say you're gonna put another tree in there. Well, that's fine for the next generation, but, you know, and we, you know, we should look at that in terms of, can we plant new trees in the right areas, or does it even make sense to put them in there?
Right.
But I think based on the size and the scope of this project, it's kind of like the middle school and it's kind of like the schools. You're trading, you know, tax revenue and the future of the village against this beautiful land that we're devastating, and it's very hard. But you know, this is one of those decisions. It's just
right.
Like MI when they wiped out
gotta
the
do
golf
what you
course.
gotta do.
And I yeah,
Well-
you said it a perfect way, because I don't disagree with you. I think it's unfortunate that, you know, we're losing trees, we're losing wetland, we're losing all of this. And to me, it's not even just about the money. It is nice,
No, it isn't.
you know, it is about, for a lot of people, having a school is going to be, you know, an amazing thing in the neighborhood. So, you know, the pros and the cons. I lost every single one of our trees out back and the apple trees next door because our backyard's now flood. It's never done that. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. You guys have heard it 1,000 times. I get it. We no longer have one tree back here. Every single tree has died, and I hear you. It's unfortunate. That said, I would do anything to have our backyard fixed. So I know it's not what anybody wants to hear. And like you said, you know, that some of these trees are priceless for people. Obviously for me, it's not. I'm a different person. That's why I'm relying on you guys to give me some guidance on that, because I'm not, I am definitely not the save the tree instead of doing a project type person. And I in the last year and a half, and I just have to say this, I am really trying to understand it more, because
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Tiffany,
Yes.
because it means a lot to a lot of people, including me.
It does.
And
I
there's
agree.
just been a lot of new understanding about the importance of trees in so many different ways. And so you don't want to just willy-nilly do it. But on the other hand, you know, in order to improve the value of the houses in that neighborhood. Now that
Right.
you could say the value is going down because the big trees are gone. However, the structural integrity of those homes is being improved and the water flow being improved. It's a long-term gain for this pain. And so you have to make choices, and that's making choices.
And it might be a good idea to start identifying exactly which trees are the worst offenders.
Yeah, they've probably done that already, but there might be some.
Yeah, they have, but again, it's been a good year since they've been back there, and the quality and condition of some of those trees, you know, unfortunately, like you guys know, when it floods that much, you know, he's saying some of them may be at the end of their life, and that wouldn't surprise me, because some of them can't take that much water. So, and that's what happened to all of ours within just 4 or 5 years. We had perfectly healthy apple trees that you could go pick an apple off and eat it. They're dead. Like one of them's already fallen over, and the other one might as well. It is dead. So I really kind of wanted to hear this, because I'm sure that there may even be people that request this video, and I don't want to sound insensitive when it comes to the trees. I, for the record, spent time over with Mad Scientist yesterday with Lisa, and got to hear about trees and, you know, all of that. And then today, Lisa went and picked up the 200 trees. So I feel like I'm trying to turn a new leaf when it comes to that kind of stuff. So we'll see. My husband just laughed, just so you know.
All right.
Would it be too difficult if I were to try and accumulate some of these materials with diagrams and reports and maps and stuff, so that I can learn this, a lot of these details a little better?
So at this
What
point in time, this project has changed about 15 times, and Tony, I think you might agree with that, and Diane. This design is once again going to be completely different. And that's why, and I didn't want to, I hope I didn't come across really rude on Monday night, because the design is being redone again. The design is being redone with a larger pipe. My understanding was it's going to affect the wall over on the side, and all of that is going to have to be redone. I don't know exactly how this diagram is going to look. But it's my understanding with a larger pipe, it's going to affect, you know, how where people step down and there's like the rod, or not the, like the rotted wood that's there. It's my understanding all that's going to come out.
That's the head wall, and it
All of
is
that.
collapsed. There's
Everything, that entire
there's
section.
something dead in there too. I can't find it. Unless it's the Munster house.
Right.
Where the
So
smell's coming.
all I can tell you is, looking at an old diagram from the project that was bid out 2 years ago is, I don't want to say pointless, but I'm going to say pointless. I don't know that the design is going to be anything like what it was before. And we don't have it. We've not seen it. That is exactly what he said he's looking at the end of May.
Well, the head wall is pretty common. Most people have seen a million of them. They're basically just an abutment wall, and the pipes come out the end, and it's there to stabilize the earth. You know, it's like a retainer wall with the pipes coming through it, and it drains into the basin behind my place here and goes down the open waterway down to North Lake.
Right,
So,
but we don't have that design yet.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can I, you know, here's the one thing about we haven't brought up at all in this conversation is the darn roof, the gutters being drained to their backyard.
Yes.
I mean, this is the thing. This project, in my opinion, shouldn't be going forward at all until we address all the different issues, because I don't think we need to build up 4 feet of dirt back there to fix this problem. If the residents that live there got their house roof gutters to drain to the curb like they're supposed to, according to our code. Go ahead, Mayor.
I'm in total agreement with that. And here's my quick question. Joe, could we make this a project for you to verify if your current, without putting you on the spot, but I don't think you'd have to go any further than could you verify if any or all of them have reverted theirs to do what they're supposed to do? Because I think I'm the one that saw, Tony, I think I'm the one that told you that.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a number of pipes
No.
from the houses at the end of Park Lane that have put their gutter, pipes down where they empty into the open part of the canal going across my property. I've never made, an issue of it or anything like that. Myself, my roof itself produces quite a bit of water, and I've had 4-inch drains put in to have that so it doesn't add to the flooding that's coming through everybody's backyard.
So how is yours drained?
It drains down to the open part of the storm sewer.
So
go ahead.
This is a part.
Go ahead.
Can I please?
Yes, go ahead. That's what I was trying to say.
This is the part of this that doesn't get brought up, is that in Joe's backyard, he had a catch basin that leads back to the canal, back to the North Lake. So for the water that gets in his backyard it has a place to get to the North Lake. And that's what Joe just repaired and made bigger. The next door neighbors have the same thing. This is the reason why we're getting into this project, is because the drain that they have in their backyard is connected to our sewer, which is below grade. The thing that I think should be happening in this is those people, just like Joe had to pony up and spend the money to get the water in the low spot of his backyard to the lake, the next door neighbors need to do the same darn thing. And that's why
I'll mention one thing. You brought it up. The large pipe I just put in is to carry the village water that's coming from north of here, from the homes north of here. I went ahead and did that because I didn't know when any shore was going to happen. So since I had to repair the 8-inch pipe, I put a bigger one in to carry the other water too. And, if the shore gets done, I could probably abandon that.
And both at your house, that catch basin that you had in your house was put there for a reason, is because that's a low spot in your yard. And in order to keep that from collecting water, they needed to put that in there. And,
Well,
and the next door neighbor had the same
but I
thing and
repaired that a
never-
couple of years ago. There's no water that comes from my
I-
property
and that's my problem. That's the
that goes in there.
problem, Joe, is that all the water that's getting to your backyard shouldn't be going there. And that's where we're getting ahead of ourselves, and we're trying to fix East Shore Court before we fix the problem on Cleveland Avenue. And I'm going to keep
Well-
saying this every time we talk about this gosh darn project. We shouldn't be doing it, period, until we figure out the other storm sewer issues.
Well, that's
It's
what
just-
I said
find out.
Tony, a while back. I said, are we working downstream? In other words, going from the high point to the low point.
No, we're
And
at
that's
the low
exactly
point.
what you're saying.
You're exactly right, Joe. This is why I've been objecting to this forever, is because we're working on the low point. It's like the stupidest,
Right.
and that's why,
So,
and
so
I don't want to put any of this on Mike Flickinger, because he was asked to start in the low point. You know, that's why this whole thing is.
So the high point is Columbus, right? The high point is Columbus.
Jasmine,
involved
Market,
in
or
it.
Huntington,
Can
one
we-
or the other.
It's
Can we,
not all
fi-
Columbus.
Mike,
In the
can you
mall.
help Mike negotiate with Columbus and say, we're about to, we are ready to spend X amount of, on the downside here. And we have the money allocated and we're ready to, we're ready to do the final design and press the button and do this. But we need your help, Columbus, City of Columbus, to figure out if
What?
anything above this is,
That's what Gene,
another,
Diane, that's what Gene was.
another
working
year, forget Gene, he doesn't work here anymore, but another
on. Well, an engineer can't negotiate. with Columbus.
another year is going by. We're losing another year because we're saying the same thing we've been saying. I think we've been saying the same thing since probably 2018,
17.
when I started. So,
Well, but this has always been because we keep
We gotta
getting
get
new
past it.
information. We keep getting new information is why this continues to change. And that's why I think right now we are so close to getting this figured out. If we just give Columbus time, and we're working with Columbus right now. I mean, this has only happened within the last couple of months, and we need to wait and figure out what Columbus figures out, because that's where this water is coming from that ends up in the backyard. Most of the water, some of it's coming from the house, which, Joe, your neighbor, that's the thing that you should look at, Joe, is that their roof gutters are going out to the backyard, and that's what's filling up their
Yeah.
the
The
low spot
house
in the
north of me,
backyard.
the roof gutter goes out into what used to be the holding pond that got silted in where the catch basin went bad. And Mike says the water has to flow uphill to get to the 30-inch pipe that's back there.
Well, that's why
Right,
we're
so-
doing all of this work.
Right,
Yeah, so asking
But-
them to
but-
asking them to divert to the sewers in the front is fine, except it won't work because it's below grade, it's not gonna work.
Yeah,
Right.
around here
When
it
they
won't
do it,
work
when
unless
they do
you
it, it's not
pump
gonna work right.
It
You'd
will-
have to pump the water up there, but what I've done,
No,
I have a single,
no. You
I
have
have a single story house, so the roof is larger. I put in all brand new drain pipes underground back to the storm sewer. So there's no water that comes, my front drains to the street, and anything that comes off the roof drains directly to the storm sewer.
How does
But
it go?
here's the thing.
Look,
This
Tony-
is the code.
I'm going to
The
ask a
code
dumb question.
reads- Go ahead.
This is my dumb question. Joe, when you say that, this is my question. Is it going from the roof through a pipe to the stormwater, or is it going onto the surface and flowing over the grass into the storm?
Well, if you give me a second.
Tony, did I make that make sense?
Well, I don't know about Joe's, but I've looked at the neighbor's house, and what they have got going on is it's pipe down to the back of their house. And then it just goes on the ground. So halfway from the back from their house, it's in a pipe till the middle of their backyard, and then it just goes into their backyard. And
Correct.
that's what fills, and that's the low spot.
I
We're all
saw
Can you
that.
see this,
complexes.
Tiffany?
Okay, no, I'm trying to,
Can you see this
Hey,
picture
Joe.
okay?
there we go. Yes.
Okay, this downspout right here, I'll back up so you can see it from a distance. I ran a new line all the way from that downspout down underground where none of the water comes into the
Correct.
rear yard.
And that's to the front.
That goes down to sewer side of the house. The front of the house drains to the street. The side I put lines in also that go directly to the storm sewer. And that's over here. I'll show you where that is.
So what were those pipes
downspout
right there? What were those black pipes right
here
there?
drains directly to the storm sewer. So I don't have
When
I
he
don't have
says it
any
drains
water.
directly into the storm sewer, it's draining into his yard or through the pipe into the backyard, then into the catch basin, then into the
Right.
north lake.
Where does that come
No.
out?
There's an underground pipe that goes directly from the downspout to the storm sewer. It doesn't
When you
through
say
the
storm sewer, you mean the lake?
yard at all. I did that.
Oh, okay.
So he did fix his. Now, what does the neighbors look like without going onto their property and getting in trouble?
Was
Breaking up, Joe, breaking up.
Okay, that may not work.
You know, that's the line that you
No,
saw, and I
you
wouldn't.
see that little hole in the wall there? That's the pipe that comes out that was here to start with, and I added to it.
Joe,
So it drains
Joe, that was
directly in.
awesome.
All my downspouts drain directly to the storm sewer.
Perfect.
None of it goes in the yard.
Okay, that's what I
It's a
wanted.
simple answer.
But
So-
but the next door neighbors does.
Or have they fixed it? That was my
I-
question.
The next
I
door
doubt-
neighbor has downspouts that drain into where what used to be that holding, the holding pond.
Right,
It's
which is
silted
gone.
in. So it
Which
does
is-
drain into the yard.
Well, and that's where, okay, so Diane, I know you're a little bit newer to this committee, so Tony and I have had this conversation, and the conversation that we had is, it is in fact code, that they need to be run to the street, that they should not be just draining. And there is another situation that we're dealing with that's on West Bridge. Obviously, we can start working with the code enforcement officer to start issuing letters to everybody that is currently doing this, because in my opinion, one of the issues that we have at the corner of West Bridge, that person is not causing all of the problems. I want to be blunt and say that, that's not all of the problem, but that particular area is flooding extremely bad, and clearly it's attributing to the problem. So if we could stop 10%, 20% of the issues in some of these places by making people do what the code says, we need to start doing that, in my opinion. And I believe Tony is in agreement completely too. Now, this could
Well-
be something extremely costly for some people. How far do we want to go with this? Just because, people haven't done it in the past, does that mean they get away with it?
Well,
that's
it's
why-
not a getting away with it, Tiffany. You can't, right along here and where East Shore is going, there's a huge change in grade. The street is much higher than the rear. If you wanted to take rainwater that was coming off, say, for example, the neighbor to my north, he would have to pump water won't run uphill. He'd have to
No,
put
but
the pump
Joe,
in.
but you
Come
can
down your downspouts and go straight out to the
You can't-
street.
you can redo your gutters and have your gutters so they go to the front of the house
Correct.
and to the street.
Well,
And that's why,
Then that adds water to the existing storm sewers in the street. The water ends up in the storm
We don't
sewer
have a
where,
problem.
however it flows.
Joe,
The
we-
people on Jordan
we
Road have
don't
run
have a
line.
Right, but I think the problem
Joe,
is
we don't
people
have
are,
a problem with the streets. We don't have a problem with the storm water draining in front of your house, Joe. There isn't a
No, we
problem with
don't.
that. That's working
But it-
fine.
right,
But
the
if
current,
you might have a problem if you start adding to it. That'd be another engineering study. But
No,
I think
In
it's
my-
ludicrous to ask people to pump water up a mountainside to put it in the storm drain that, that's all
Joe,
one storm
Joe, can
drain
you give me
anyway.
a second, Joe? Joe, the code does not read, you gotta pump the water out. It says that your gutters have to be tiled to the curb. That means, what it means, you know what that means, Joe? You have to have
Yeah.
a pipe
Right, I think the
going
standing,
from your gutter.
I
Means
think the
I'd have to,
standing
I'd have
water,
to, it wouldn't run in a tile anyway, because it's gotta go uphill. There'd have to be a pump. Just like a sump pump in your basement. You can't,
Up-
water won't run uphill.
up what hill? We're not talking about all the way from the
Joe,
back. If they
listen to
drain,
me, Joe. It
No,
needs,
what we're talking about, see, the front of my house is at street level and all that drains to the street. I clean those out all the time and everything. The rear of the house is way below the street level. The water, there's no way it's gonna run up
Joe, listen
the
to me,
side
Joe.
of the
Could you
hill
please,
there.
Joe, could you listen for a second? I'm talking about the gutters. You can get your gutters to run to the front of the house, to drain to the front of the house. That's what needs to happen with your next door neighbors. And I would say that if they want to save their trees, that they ought to start thinking about getting their rainwater diverted away from their backyard and get it out to the street. Because as far as I don't know how all of their gutters from their whole house may run to the backyard. I'm not sure how that.
They do.
How their gutters
Paul and Pat's gutters come down and they just go behind the house a little bit and then they drain down into the back and it eventually finds its way to the lake. The people behind me have a pipe that comes across my property. I've never said anything. It sticks out and it some of their downspouts, because it's downhill, drain
None of-
into
No,
the storm sewer.
none of those are draining into your backyard. That's what.
No,
I'm
they're
trying
not.
to-
They're draining into the storm sewer. None of, but
Right,
what
that's
comes in
what
my
we-
backyard
Okay,
comes from Lori. It
okay,
comes from the
let's-
Yeah,
storm
let's-
sewer.
Diane, I know you're trying to say something too, and the only thing I'm gonna repeat what I said a few minutes ago. People are complaining because they have standing water. When you have excessive water coming from your roof that's not being directed to the front of the house and it's running to the back, contributing to the standing water, that's causing a problem. So I'm not sure, and this is where I will be the first to admit, I'm gonna say something that is maybe the dumbest thing I've ever said, but I feel like I don't know, okay, I don't know why we've never talked about why we're allowing people to contribute to the ongoing problem on East Shore. So I don't know how anybody can justify spending X amount of money, like Tony is alluding to, when we haven't fixed the standing water issue. Like, you don't just put excessive water there. And that's the same thing that we're having over on the West Bridge area. Maybe I'm crazy, but Tony, you know this, I was shocked when I figured out that that was going on too, because again, I don't know what percentage it equates to of additional standing water, but I would think that it's significant, but I don't know that, I'm not an engineer.
There is no standing water that comes from my house. I can tell you that because
And I believe that, Joe. And I don't,
in.
I'm not throwing stones at anybody, but I keep getting phone calls from people. And I assumed that that actually had been fixed, because just so everybody is aware, I actually spoke to the homeowner before he sold the house and told him that that needed done. There's probably some documentation about that, because the other part to that is I did bring that to Mike Flickinger's attention not too long ago. And the discussion that we had is we could actually tie, potentially at their cost, tie that into our storm and allow them to continue to run it behind their house, but they would need to connect to those pipes to the lake, because
That's what I've done.
this is not new. Like, this is something that I honestly thought that it was fixed. So Tony, I don't know if this is something you want to bring up in like in a planning and zoning meeting. I don't know if it's something we want to take straight to council.
You got to bring it up to the code enforcement officer.
Well, that's my question. I think, does council want to move forward pushing, again, there's going to be some ruffled feathers when we start telling people, because this is not a cheap fix for people, but this is.
Well, there was
I can
There's a
assure you
reason
that because
why
I
it was
fixed
put-
all of mine and I get cost and I'm just still doing it.
Right.
There's a reason why the code says
I know.
you need to have your gutters run to the curb to
Okay.
avoid these types of situations.
Diane.
And it was done in
Well-
But you
1950.
can see that a lot of people that live off of the creek or the lake run their back pipes into the lake. I mean, I think it's unsightly, but I mean, that's what they've been doing. So you have some exception. I think you have some exceptions. Are you saying that people who, like in the MI section, you have pipes coming right out into the creek areas? So that they're draining some of their roof.
We
We
could look at where standing
as
water.
long
is
as
a
they're
problem and
not
examine
draining
that a little
directly
bit.
into their yard, if they, I mean, so as long as it says that, I mean, the thing is, yes, you're gonna have, I remember 30 some years ago, it's been more than 30 now that I've lived here, where this was a discussion point, that people were letting their gutters some people didn't even have gutters. Like our neighbor didn't have good gutters, was never cited for it. And our backyard was always flooding. So thank God he moved and somebody moved in that put gutters up properly. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have soggy backyards because they do not. It's
When
not
I
been
moved
done
into
right.
this house, Diane, the
Forever.
first thing I did, the Ralstons had put some very nice, fancy gutter systems on. And Paul next door had changed his gutters to 12-inch, which are oversized in order to solve a problem. So I had all the gutters here replaced just a couple of years ago. And every drop of water comes off of my roof goes directly into the storm sewer. None of it goes into the yard at all.
I mean, all
Tony.
right,
Now,
Johnny,
that's
I
not
mean,
true of the other
So in
people.
terms of,
Joe,
I think in terms of asking all of council whether they want the code enforcement officer to start sending out letters, I think you'd have to ask everybody because there will be pushback and people will be angry. So I think it just needs to be, everybody needs to know what's going to happen. And I think we have to be very generous in terms of the amount of time people are going to need because this
Right.
is something that has to be budgeted. Not everybody could just, spend that kind of money just out of the blue. So
I
think
fixed mine I fixed mine voluntarily.
a campaign to get this going is probably overdue.
it is,
It
it
is.
is overdue. And if I can say that, we have codes. I don't want this to be enforced so that every person has their stuff running to the curb, and they're not allowed to run out the backyard unless it creates a problem. That's my thing,
Okay.
and these two cases, the one on West Bridge, are the two that I'm aware of. And if anybody else has someone whose neighbor is running water into their yard, there's a code against that. You cannot direct the water into someone else's yard. And just like there's a code that says it has to be tiled to the street, we need to enforce those codes where they are an issue. And that's what I think the code enforcement officer needs to get on those people in those particular areas. Not everybody, that, have the I don't know, backyard gutter patrol. It's just the ones we have problems with, which would be on West Bridge and Elmhurst and your neighbors, Joe.
I'll mention another thing. Behind this particular area, I'm told before they did the whole East Shore project back in 1959, 1960, when they put this area in and developed it, that behind the houses here, Paul, myself, the neighbor to the north of me, that this was part of the lake. It was the lake bottom. But I can tell you this, you go down 2 inches underneath. It took me years to get grass to grow because 2 inches down, it's pure clay for as far as you probably to China. And part of the standing water problem is you have this impervious clay, a very small distance underneath what we'd call grass.
Right. Well, you're probably right. I'm sure the lake was probably bigger and they probably backfilled to make those lots.
Well, I've done enough excavations. You can come look at the clay. You can make pottery back here. You can start a brick factory.
Okay.
I'm
so
serious.
Let's
So,
circle. Let's circle
That's
back
just why
around
I
real
put
quick.
drains in the way that I did. The water won't drain. It'll just sit here like a swimming pool if it's in a low spot. So,
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah,
it.
I've got clay spots like that too, closer to the woods, the creek in the woods, where you needed pickaxe to even think about. And the water, you could see the water if you dig down 12 inches, it is a pool of water under there. So yeah, I think we have a lot of that in the park, in different spots. But moving on, what do we learn from this?
Well, what
I still think we should, still think Mike Flickinger should be moving ahead, and then in a parallel path, we should be working on Columbus, and hopefully the two will converge.
So to answer that really fast, Diane, Randall was out here today, investigating some of the stuff right behind my house, because we got an update just letting us know in case we got some phone calls about who's in my backyard. They were back there today. So our engineers were back there today. I don't know if Columbus was back there with them or if Columbus sent them to do something specific. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know today, the 15th, they were back there.
that's why I would like to say, if we could, real quick, Joe, hold on a second. If we could just hold off a little bit longer on the East Shore Court project. I know, and
No, all I'm going to tell
it's
you is
so
it's going to
close.
be the end of May. I mean, they're working on the designs, but we're still talking 45 days from now. That gives us 45 days to continue to work with Columbus to see if anything comes up. We're not bidding this project for at least 45 days. So
Questions can be directed to Mike because Mike knows from his studies exactly how much water from the high point all the way down to North Lake is coming through the sewer. He has to know that so he can size the pipe that goes to East Shore. I presume he's calculated all that. Usually those calculations are accurate and they go by 50 to 100-year storms. In other words, they size the pipes for large storms. But I'll invite anyone while we're on here to come into my backyard and look. Mike's been here a bunch of times because he studies the head wall. So he's seen the drains that I put in, and I put a big one in just to take care of it's like a second storm sewer for the village, this last one I put in.
all right, let's circle back around. So we are not moving forward until next year on anything except for the storm. I'm going to update and sign some different things for that. We are going to update the appropriations to work on that. As far as potholes go, I know you guys had asked this a little bit. I am having Brian, I didn't get a message back. I was hoping that I would hear back. Whether or not he did finish the ones in front of 2999. I know he had filled them as best he could, but I thought we ran out of stuff. He did do some over in front of the pool, because that's obviously pretty bad. I'm gonna let you guys also know, and I don't know if this is part of streets, in my opinion it is. We're in a lot of need of some gravel over at the pool. I don't know your guys' thoughts on that. Maybe Tony, if you want to drive through there, like a lot of it has, what's that?
Can I get in on this? I need 20 tons of gravel myself.
You're talking about the parking lot.
Yeah, the parking lot. I don't know if you guys have any interest in doing anything with that. But it's definitely in need of some additional gravel, and it's quite a bit. So if we don't do it this year, if you guys can make it a priority for budgeting some money for next year, I have no idea how much it would be. But I definitely would say between this year and next year, we need it this year. But I don't think it's going to kill anybody if it happens next year. So that's just, again, something to think about as far as streets goes. And I think that was really the only thing I have right now for, they're working on, my understanding is the design for the Maplewood area. I've not heard any additional information. And then last but not least, Diane, I know just as an FYI for you, we have not gotten any updates on on fixing the water bills. So that's something that, you know, again, is a round and round circle of trying to figure out how to make that work for residents and commercial properties. So I'm hoping we can get that off the table, obviously this year, but hopefully by summer.
What are you talking about?
Go ahead, Diane.
That's where we moved the money to the sewer fund,
Oh.
directed, right? And then we have to fix the utility bills for businesses, so they're not overly billed for, there's a formula and blah, blah. That's too bad. I mean, that's just,
Yeah, it's, so clearly it's able to be done because other people do it. It's just a matter of, do they just not care that it's that much higher for their businesses? But we have a lot of small businesses, so obviously any large increase is going to affect them. And maybe, maybe some people don't pay that close of attention to it. So that's something that I'm aware of that we've still not finished. And I know, again, that's just one of the things we want off the table. So as far as streets go, that's really the only things I had. I don't know if Joe or anybody has any other questions that I missed.
Two.
Go ahead.
Only two. One, to deliver and then to distribute gravel for the parking lot at the pool is not a real expensive thing. Unless they run into something where they got to put drains in and this and that and the other thing, but to simply add gravel's a giant truckload. I don't know, 30 tons is about $800 or something like that. And then whatever a person would charge to spread it out. That's not a big expense.
No, it's not. And we do have some money that is budgeted for the pool. So maybe that's something that we do look into. So yeah, if you guys don't care, I can look into it. If the money.
I think it'd be nice with everything we're doing. I think it'd be nice with everything we're doing with the pool to have it look attractive.
Right. And there's something I'm going to tell you guys that I don't know the answer to. And I hate doing these on live streams because it makes me look awful. I know that they took the fence down in order to be able to finish the baby pool. And I'm not sure how that's going back or if that was in the budget. And I feel like I should know if it was in the proposal to put that back. Does anybody else know?
The thing I remember is that we had talked about replacing the fence when we did this work. But I would imagine that they're gonna put the fence back up.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
it may not
they would
look
have
all that
to.
great.
yeah, they would have to put it
it's
back
not
up.
that- Yeah, it's gonna get put back up, and it's not hard to put back up, and it's not gonna look really any worse than it already does, I don't
Right.
think.
Right.
What is it, about 100 feet of it or something like that?
Well,
Yeah,
if you did
it's-
the whole length on that back side there, I don't know. It's probably
I
tough.
think the only reason I was really asking is if we end up doing anything with it later on, I would like to see it get pushed back a tiny bit more to give a little bit more room on the other side of there.
I think they need to put it back the way it was.
Right.
And so we can make it, if we want to
Later.
do something later, we can make that decision later.
I agree.
So
Well,
we're
I
not
just didn't know if
forced,
you guys
we're
knew.
not forced to make the decision now.
The
Perfect.
materials aren't that bad, but chain link fence can be reused. I used to build chain link fence. That was my job out of high school.
So, so as far as that goes, that's really the only thing I had, because really that's more of pool stuff. And I don't know, Diane, I know you didn't know this, but just so you know, we have a plumbing issue down there. So
Again.
that's gonna cost us some money.
at the pool?
Is that in the pool part or the bathrooms part?
No,
What's going on?
The pit spewing water again.
The pit again? Okay.
We turned the water on and we already had to turn it back off. Their plumber's coming tomorrow. So I'll let you guys know. I'll shoot you guys an
And
email.
that's something we need to, I don't understand how that has not been a problem every year, because it's an open pit where the shut off is, it has to be freezing every year, in
Right.
the winter time. That's what happened again?
No, I don't, I
No.
mean, all I know is there's water spewing in there and the plumber's not coming until tomorrow. So I have no idea what's going on. My,
I bet,
It would
Yeah.
be good to get,
yeah.
I mean, if this is gonna be an annual thing, then eventually they might get to the point where they can't fix it. So
Well, you put
better
a valve.
get a quote on what it's gonna cost to get an estimate on what it's gonna cost to replace it. Totally.
Well-
Every structure ever built, commercial, residential or otherwise, where you have a high point where water stands and it's gonna freeze, they put a drain valve at the bottom.
Well, Joe, the shut off of the water to the pool is
Right.
in a
So,
pit that's about 4 or 5 feet deep, and it's open to the weather.
Right,
You
if
know,
it's
and that's
open to the air, it'll freeze.
Yeah, I know. That's why this needs to be redesigned or something.
And maybe that's something that we, next year we look at, but the other part to that is, and again, I'm not getting into this, but we've been told that this pool doesn't have much longer left. Take it any way you
Wow.
want.
Say that again?
That this pool is going to need,
on its last leg.
it's on its last leg.
Should it have
The
to be-
walls, all of the above. So it may be time to start talking about just budgeting X amount of dollars each year to make it not hurt so bad when it comes time.
Well, maybe, yeah, 2 years ago. Anyway,
had some
yeah, I
thoughts
would
about
say anytime you want to start budgeting, because you know me, I'm like, to me, I'd be excited if you guys decided it was too bad and you had to push the whole thing in and make a playground out of it. I'd be happy. But I know I'd be the only one who'd be happy, but I'd be happy with that. But
You would be
anyway,
one
yeah,
of
so
the only ones.
Start
But it's-
budgeting. Yeah, we should have
I agree.
started budgeting. We need to start budgeting.
When the
for
new
that.
Green Deal outlaws
And
air
we're never
conditioning,
gonna have enough, so you better, yeah.
Right.
Hope we get that increased tax revenue, because we're gonna
when
need
the
it.
new Green Deal outlaws air conditioning, there's gonna be everybody in the pool.
Exactly. All right. So it is
I just
almost,
wanted to say that,
Go ahead.
real quick question, I think. In terms of, the question was asked again about, streetlights and sidewalks. This is not ready for streets, right? This is really a planning discussion, would you say?
in my opinion, it's all of the above. I think we've talked about this in so many different things, because it's,
Right.
where do you start with something like that? I mean, is it something that it goes to planning and zoning and then it goes here? Does it start in streets? In my opinion, it's almost more of a council thing, because it's going to be a large purchase.
Right, I mean,
to do
obviously,
something.
yeah.
Tony, what do you think?
Well, I think it starts with planning and zoning. That's what
Okay.
it's all about. And if planning and zoning, if they feel that there's an appetite for this, or enough people want to do this, then they can move forward with it. But, it's my opinion that we've had this over the years, had conversations about sidewalks and lights, and in the end, no one's been in favor of moving forward with it. Sidewalks, I think, is it's just a cost issue, and getting rid of trees, and how difficult it would be to put sidewalks has been the main reason why I don't think we're going to move forward with that. And streetlights, I think it's just, for me at least, that's one thing about Minerva Park I wouldn't say I like or dislike. It's that when you pull back into Minerva Park, you're in someplace different, because it's dark at
Right.
night. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well-
And I kind of, I mean, to me, it's the character of the village. And when you start talking about bringing streetlights in, to me, that streetlights and sidewalks changes what the character of our village is.
Yes, it changes.
And that's
it
why I
totally,
don't
but
think,
I got a couple of things to say on that. Number one, most municipalities sidewalks go to the homeowner. So if you were to do sidewalks, that would be another thing where I can imagine people get the notice where they got to install sidewalks, the expense of
Yeah,
it.
I
no,
don't
yeah,
see us-
Westerville didn't do that. I mean, no, I think no, but I think it keeps coming up. So it's kind of like back in the day with the facility. Do you build a facility or not? And no one could get off of the discussion. So to get off of the discussion, maybe next year we could at least budget for even a consultant to give us some facts, figures, estimates, really high level as to what it might look like and what it might take to do such a thing. So, and then at that point, if we would have it, so that maybe if it got to be a louder voice, we would be able to say, this needs to go to a vote, this needs to be a special levy, this needs to, if most people want this, this is what would happen, this is what it would take. And then we would probably have to, go fund me something on. I just think that's the only way to get it past the perpetual question.
I don't see any way around.
Rather than all
I
or
don't
nothing, there are
around
some
the
areas where
perpetual.
safety's paramount, where, if sidewalks were, for example, we're doing a sidewalk right now in asphalt at the new building. And,
I don't, yeah, safety. People still get their packages stolen off their porches, right? And it doesn't matter that they have
right.
sidewalk or not.
Well,
Right.
people feed down East Shore Court here and the kids all walk in the street.
Well,
So
yeah,
here's,
imagine, there's no room for sidewalks in a lot of the areas. For all practical purposes, there's just not a place for it. But go
so
ahead.
the only thing I have to say is I'm in agreement with I think everybody on the lights. No, I think it's an expense. I think it's something that the majority of the people don't want I think that there's a handful of people that want lights, but I think the number of people that don't want lights definitely outweigh it. I think if you really want a street light, you go put one of those ones right out in your front yard.
Well, yeah, exactly. But there's something else about that. Almost everyone has porch lights. A lot of people don't run them.
Right. So I
And
think
if
that people-
everyone had their porch lights on, we'd have a lot.
right.
Yeah,
better
but we
street
don't want
lights.
our porch lights on. If we had one,
Well,
I have
they'd have light bulbs
I
dying.
have a guy over on 2 streets over, and he's got one of those really tall spotlight things. I could see it from my bedroom. I could read off that light. I have to close the blinds in the evening.
I know
No,
that
we got
that
too many
shouldn't
lights
be.
already.
that shouldn't be.
Tony
We got
is
this
laughing.
we got the high pressure sodium lights on big poles down at the temporary lights on the walkway and the new bridge that shine in my window. But
Okay, so to continue
but
on
you
my
can
light,
replace a 100-watt light bulb with a 3-watt light bulb nowadays.
Well, we could shield them too. I mean, we could do more in terms of shielding, so they just go down and not up.
Well,
But there's things.
Diane, we've been talking about this in planning and zoning, and there are some codes about that. That's another.
Right.
Yeah, well,
that
what we're doing
we're
over
obligated
here,
to.
and some people do it sometimes and not others, but I put LED lights that use very little electricity in and put out quite a bit of light, and then I run them at night. And that provides a street light.
And I thought that was a quick question, so I apologize.
No, well, I'm gonna actually say something about this because this has been a topic that we've had a lot inside the building. And like you've alluded to, and if David were here, David, we actually started this conversation even in the community just the other night, and you'll hear what happened. So, but to go, I mean, as far as lights, no, I'm out. The sidewalk, I'm not gonna call it a sidewalk. I am in full favor, and I'm gonna get reamed for saying this for some people. But I'm only interested, hear me out. I am only interested in Minerva Lake Road, at least for the time being, from Cleveland Avenue to Westerville Road. Obviously, you're gonna knock out some trees. And as soon as I said to do it on Minerva Lake Road, what was the first words out of someone's mouth? There's some
Not on my
100-year-old
side.
trees. Yes. So again, I don't want to sound insensitive when it comes to that, but I have a huge reason as to Minerva Lake Road as being one of my major roads. I'm not talking sidewalk. I'm talking about a black asphalt path all the way from one side to the other.
That's disgusting.
Well, that brings up something else that someone called me about yesterday, and that is they're saying on Fairview that from the new section, water actually comes down the street there, goes on to Minerva Lake Road, and then flows down to Route 3 right through the street. Have you heard this one yet?
There's no there's no curbs and gutters or anything down there, so it just flows.
But apparently there's a large amount of water coming out of MI that goes to the other section.
It flows.
So I don't know if
Probably
that's true or
flows
not.
downhill.
That
I'm not an
is,
engineer.
there are no storm sewers at all east of Starview. There aren't any storm sewers. I don't even know if there might even be further up that there's no storm sewers, but it just runs down the street or the curb.
Okay, so to go back to my thing, I think putting in anything on Jordan Road, it would only benefit us. I think spending the money is not going to be well spent. Even I walk in the street, whatever. But having these two new schools, I feel like a lot of kids will be walking, or at least could get to that particular place and walk up out of the street. I think it's a safety, again, like you said, safety this, safety that. I do think for the children's purposes and getting some of the people out of the street to walk to school is,
I think you need
it's responsible.
you need to look at the layout. To put sidewalks down Minerva Lake Road is a huge, you would have to build retaining walls
And I
in
think,
front of people's houses. I
right,
mean, it's cutting out trees and retaining walls. I
right.
mean, that
And
is,
all
I don't even
projects
why
are,
even think of.
right. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. And that's why, I think that's why Diane kind of said what she's saying is people don't take on this project because it's not going to be easy. You are going to get pushback from, I'm going to go with 25 to 50% of the people that have those houses. Cause I do believe that there's people on Minerva Lake Road that would also love to see it. But would you put it on the right side or the left side? Would you, my opinion is you would actually do this project as if you were doing it on both sides. We would never do both sides, but you would see what would be the most cost efficient. And if we had to switch parking on this side of the road, we would do that. But my opinion is you would do the actual project. How many trees do I have to cut out if we do it on this side? How many retaining walls do I have to build if we do it on this side? What would it entail to do it on the right side versus the left side? And then bring it to everybody and determine, like she said, are you going to vote for it or are you not going to vote for it? But I think getting it to the point of getting a price, it doesn't hurt anything for us to say, look, instead of us saying it can't be done or people don't want it, I think it's our job to invest in, and I have no problem doing it if you guys at least give me the thumbs up to do it or find out how to do it. But just to say we tried. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because Tony, at the end of the day, we may all look at this and go, 15 trees, retaining walls, and $2.3 million. Yeah, thanks. Have a nice day.
Right.
I
Nobody's
don't
gonna
see
do
why
that.
you can't.
It's
you
a
can say
civil
that
engineering job to start with, so
You
there's
can
an
say
engineering.
that right now without just. If
I
the
think,
land
I think
was
if it's
flat,
somebody, I think it needs to be an independent source that is feeding you this information. So the public believes it's non-biased. But I don't think, I think someone could definitely, I think a vendor could walk down the street and I don't think it would take like a topographic survey. I don't think it would take all that much. I mean, the people in the business know the basic, how much different things cost. I think someone could do this without
if
taking
you can
6
find
months to
someone
do
to
it.
give you an estimate, if you can find someone to give you an estimate for for the project you guys are talking about right now, without being $10,000, that's what I'm thinking it costs you to get a
Oh, no,
price.
it's not even, that's not even
You
close to
want,
what it's
all
gonna be.
right. Well, I know that I wouldn't even want to think about doing a proposal without getting paid something.
Well, I
because
don't
that
think we,
is a
I don't think we
huge-
want to have a proposal, Tony. I don't think we can do that. I think we should have, just like we did with the, just,
You would
yeah,
need
the
a civil,
estimate. Just
in
like
my
we did with
opinion, you
the,
need a civil engineering study to look at that
just like we did with
because
the
we're a municipality.
facility, you're getting people to get to the point where you
It
could
costs-
say, oh, wow, 1.7, I know that's not the final price. So I'm gonna,
But it costs us like $10,000 to get us to do that.
well,
And
I
I
know
would
that,
say,
and
again, if you can
this
find
is-
someone to give
this
us
is
an
sidewalks.
inexpensive, if you could find someone to give, I'm all in favor of finding out how much it would cost if it doesn't cost us a lot of money.
I think we
find
could
out how much.
probably, I think we could probably do that. I think that, and whether, I think we could, maybe I
Ask-
could be wrong. I could certainly be wrong, but I think we could get somebody to do it. Some engineering group to do it.
Let me just,
a small
be
one.
particular.
A small, hungry engineering group to do it.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a civil
How much-
engineering task.
How much do you want to spend on this?
I'm not gonna do anything without bringing it to you guys clearly because it would be a contract. So
Well,
let me just put a couple phone calls out there.
Yeah, for the topographic survey, okay, think about that. That's doing, bringing out your equipment, taking pictures, making measurements, and we did that for the community building and the property around it, the streets and all the stuff. And that was $1,800.
Well, there's another
So-
thing. The engineering street study we just belayed, sidewalks should be put in that for study. That's just an option.
For the sewers?
No, sidewalks we were talking about.
We don't have any
I don't know. Well, those
sidewalk.
people, maybe those people do sidewalk estimates.
No, we just belayed the street study that Jacobs was gonna do.
Oh, yeah, I don't think this is
So-
I think we should pick somebody local. You know, we don't always have to use these big firms to
Yeah,
do.
I wasn't suggesting we do. I was just saying that's one
Okay.
option. That could be
Okay.
added to the scope of work of that.
I think that, I don't, I don't know.
I would ask Mike, just get a little feedback from Mike about what
Yeah.
it would cost to put the price together for sidewalks.
As you
That's what
guys
I was,
drive,
that's what I was hinting at, Tony.
So not a precise thing, just a,
Right.
He doesn't have to put it on a fee. A person could casually
it
say.
needs to be
"We're
like an
thinking about this.
executive
What's
summary.
involved?"
It's like, it needs to be kind of like, this is what, this, just a consulting executive summary type thing where it's 5 pages and it talks about
I,
the challenges
I
of doing it and the amount of feet of this
me,
or
it's
that
just-
you'd have to consider and just general prices of concrete or whatever, because if you're gonna tell me you're gonna blacktop on my street, a sidewalk, I'm going to camp out in your backyard. No, under no circumstances would I go for that. None.
Well, you could pencil out where you'd like to see these sidewalks on Minerva Lake Road, Mayor Tiff, with a pencil. Nobody can estimate it unless they
Okay.
know where they're going.
I think we're getting crazy now. All right,
yeah,
are we done?
Mike, gotta get going, guys.
Well,
I know Taylor's home already. I'm like, why is my daughter home? Oh, that's right, because it's almost 9 o'clock. Okay, so I will work on some stuff. Thank you guys. And hang on a second. And
When are we gonna have the conversation about equipment? Because